the Valley Current.
Hey, Joe.
There you go. Okay.
You're ready for the next 4 years of Donald Trump.
I am. Interesting times, huh? And the LA fires. Wow. Huh? Man.
I have to tell you, there's a number of lawyers that have written into group Facebook and LinkedIn saying that their property got totally destroyed because that's a big enclave for fairly wealthy people in Pacific Palisades.
Yeah, you wonder too. Of course, it's getting political right away with, was it kept up? Was there enough money? Was there water? All that stuff, right? Don't know what to believe half the time. So,
well, this could make or break Gavin Newsom depending on how he responds to this, because I'll tell you, the world is going to look at this and say, if Gavin Newsom can't take care of Los Angeles, Gavin Newsom can't take care of the United States. So he's on the hot seat right now.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And more than ever, I mean, there's so much transparency now with, all the online and AI, and there's so much transparency. People are really getting a little bit tired of a lot of this. So you're right. This could make or break him. I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, Gavin Newsom probably had a chance to run for president in lieu of the vice president.
Right.
And I think he made the decision that it was just too risky, that having 100 days was just not enough time to make it worthwhile for him to take that shot.
Right.
He could have taken the shot, I suppose. It would have been probably an interesting comparison because, he does kind of have the look of JFK. He does have kind of more of the look of a president than, say, you might say Kamala Harris does, just from a historical point of view. It might have been a closer race, actually. It's kind of an interesting question, right?
Yeah, no, I think look back at it, said that it doesn't surprise me. I think people finally woke up. It's actually amazing to me when someone held positions like that, and especially in the legal background, that she had a hard time even articulating anything in public. It's interesting, huh?
She wasn't someone that was always out there. I don't think she was always out there as a vice president. She was kind of pretty laid back, laid back in general. So they're saying it's day 5. I'll put this on the screen because this really is the latest news that we have about this fire. They say it's day 5. I didn't realize that we're into day 5 of this fire. That's what they're saying. And they're saying that it's put this on the screen, 38,000 acres. Of course, I went to UCLA Law School, and I remember these neighborhoods were considered very, very glamorous neighborhoods. Right. And no one ever thought that they were ever subject to any risk of fire. They were more subject to landslides and flooding, frankly, than fires.
Right.
I assume you can see this.
Pacific Palisades. Wow. I can. Yeah, it's amazing.
You can see this on the screen. Yeah.
There's some good points being made about this, where these areas are decimated down to nothing. So you're going to have some people that are going to, no matter what, they're going to refuse to rebuild. And then, with the city, I read a thing on, getting permits and stuff. Even in a perfect world without all this, it took a couple of years to get permits for some of these people. So,
right. Bill Maher used to come on his show every Friday night complaining about trying to get a permit for.
Oh, is that right?
some sort of solar system or something for a shed, and he couldn't get Los Angeles County to give him the permit for years. He used to have a day count about it.
Yeah, that's crazy. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. And then, of course, the other thing this is going to do now is temporarily, it's going to make property values go up even more in the surrounding areas, right?
Or the opposite, depending on what.
Oh, you think the opposite, maybe? Because people are afraid to maybe settle down there now, moving, huh?
I mean, we have a rental property in Orange County, and we're like, has that property effectively taken a risk shift to the negative? Because A, the price of insurance is probably going to double or triple.
Yeah.
B, probably there are a lot of people going to question, obviously, look, you can look at Santa Rosa just a few years ago.
Right.
And
right.
a lot of that got rebuilt pretty quickly, right? And there are a lot of people that said, no, it probably won't get rebuilt, right?
Yeah.
So,
but that's a different. I would guess though, because of the kind of the picturesque, unique landscape and of that. For instance, if you take the Pacific Palisades area, that very rolling hills, trees, beautiful landscaping, that's wiped out now.
Yeah.
I mean, 40, 50 years of beautiful natural growth. You're just not going to get that back in a couple of years.
No, you can't buy that. You can't buy that. You can't buy that kind of, that kind of landscaping that's existed for decades. You can't buy that. I guess Paris Hilton and Billy Crystal both lost their houses, according to this report.
Well, I wouldn't. It is amazing. What does it say now? The size is twice the size of Manhattan has burnt. And it's only, how much contained? Does it say what we're up to date, day 5? I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't see anything that said it was contained. It sounded as though the wind shifted and a bunch of worry was happening that there was going to even be a larger blaze.
Wow. I don't know.
Of course, Disneyland probably has to close. It says a bunch of places closed. You got to wonder what the overall real tab is. It's a pretty big number, I would guess.
And you mentioned it a few minutes ago, and I've already seen this in my business. It's homeowners insurance is outlandish right now, and this is going to get only worse. I mean, we're seeing, first of all, some of these people weren't insuring California homes, and then the ones that are double, triples.
You have to ask yourself, how many insurance companies just fold as a result of this? Right? Because they don't really have the kind of underwriting for something that's catastrophic.
I can't imagine. No.
So this really means California taxes go up if you really look at because ultimately the government will come in with some sort of subsidy program to get people back on their feet, even if they are pretty wealthy. And they'll say, it's a catastrophic fire. We have to do something about it. And I don't know how much higher California taxes can go before people really start to protest and say it's just not worth being in California.
Yeah. Are you officially Florida resident now?
Oh yeah, we've been Florida residents since the pandemic because of my.
Oh, you have? Okay, mom. I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're actually spending more time these days traveling. I'm making the Zoom call because we were able to get really fast internet via Starlink from Mexico. So
you guys in your Mexico place still?
Yeah. You got to come down. You got to come down here at some point, Joe. It's actually great weather compared to the Bay Area. I hear it's kind of cold, right?
Yeah, no, I'd love to come down sometime. Yeah, it's and by the way, thanks again. I got to email. I guess I'll email Lee to ask her who I send the cleaning fee for Stinson Beach.
Did you have a good time? Did you get good weather?
It was great. It was so great. Yeah, it's it's just such a great little getaway from the Bay Area. It's just walk a beach and just sleepy little town. And we did a lot of hiking. We had to actually bit off a little bit too much we can chew. One day we hiked all the way up to the top of, I forget what it was, like a 7-mile hike or something.
Okay, so you made your way up probably the trail that goes to the very top where you have a kind of a view of the overall beach from the very top.
Yes. And I actually handled it pretty well. Lisa had a hard time coming down because it's pretty steep coming down. But it was great. It was the weather was, one day was fog, the rest was perfect. So I hit it on a good time.
So in general, what are you predicting from a real estate point of view? Because the interest rates don't seem to be dropping as fast as people thought they were, right? I have to say this is just this is a head scratching market right now for me, because I think a lot of us were thinking interest rates were going to come down by the first or second quarter this year. Now the Fed's signaling he may not even lower it. First talk was they're going to lower 6, 7, 8 times, and then now
there's some talk that he may not lower it for a while at all, the prime.
Right now, when you look at interest rates, and I'll just put on the screen what I guess Rocket Mortgage typically quotes, but their numbers are probably
they're close to right? They got to be close to 7%, I think, for the kind of the basic conforming, kind of. Or if you go to bankrate.com, they're going to ask you to go through a bunch of stuff.
They don't give it to you. They don't give you the data unless you give them a bunch of information. Right? That's just the way it goes. Well,
there you go. Bankrate's a good place to. They'll usually give you the update on. I don't know. I don't think you have to go through a whole rigmarole, but maybe. I don't know.
There you go.
Oh, there. Yeah. Okay. So top offer bank national. Yeah, I was going to say the national average is 7. That makes more sense. You might get something in the mid to high 6s, depending on how much money you want to pay. But it's in the high 6s, low 7s. Yeah.
Well, was it 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when it was down to like 3%?
Well, there were some time periods during the 2020 and 2021. I was getting people rates in the 2s. I mean, high 2s. And then 15-year fixed were in the low 2s for a while. But I have so many people. The dilemma here, from a national perspective, for my business, is going to be interesting. Is what you have now is you're going to have maybe a 3, 4, 5 on 5 years of people accumulating debt because they don't want to touch their first with a great interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, my business would be made up of 60 to 70% purchase and 15 to 20, 25% refinance on a regular basis. Right now, my business is 95, 98% purchase, 1 or 2% refinance.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though people are accumulating debt, and I can't tell you how many people I've had this conversation with, and I show the numbers. They have a 3.5% 30-year fixed, and then they're carrying 2, 3, 400,000 on a home equity line, or 8, 9, 10% interest, and they still don't want to do anything because they're hung up on that 3.5% first.
Yeah, well, it's like you get spoiled.
Yeah.
Years ago, I remember when my parents said that they thought a 6% interest rate was a reasonable interest rate, but they remember the Jimmy Carter years. Of course, he recently died at age 100, and we had, I guess, Jimmy Carter Day off last Thursday. But basically, there were rates that were 15, 16, 18% back then in that period of time when Jimmy Carter was president.
You probably remember. I bought my first house in 87. And I'll never forget, it was like 11 or 12% adjustable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, I bought it for $118,000, mm-hmm. but still, right? I mean, I think we just become so spoiled and jaded. We got so used to those 3 and 4% for a while that it's going to take some time. But at one point in my business, and my take on this is it's got to get back in the 5s. Once the rates get back in the 5s, we're going to see a slew of refinance. Now, I don't know what it's going to do to the purchase market. We're all still dealing with a lot of, in most places, low inventory. However, there are some places that are starting to change, that houses are sitting on the market a lot longer now. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, you got to wonder what construction loans will end up being at for people that are trying to rebuild a house. I mean, these people are usually pretty wealthy. The people in Pacific Palisades, probably their average net worth is north of $10 million. It's a very ritzy part of. But what will they do if they decide to get construction loans, presumably? Because that's a different kind of product, right? That's a much more expensive product than a typical home purchase deal.
Yeah,
right.
It is. A construction loan is kind of like having a big giant home equity line. So you get a line of credit based on the future value. So after getting permits and appraisals and all that, let's say the future value is 10 million, then most will give you somewhere between 60 and 65% of that, and you just take draws as needed. But that's a ritzy area. I don't know. I mean, I saw another interesting, which you brought it up with Bill Maher, but there's a lot of talk that, that area is probably just as liberal, if not more liberal, as Bay Area. And there was a lot of talk saying that you're going to see maybe some of these super progressive liberal people start going the other direction when they find out how it affects them.
Right.
All these regulations, it's going to take a year to get permits. And then all of a sudden, it even affects the rich.
Yeah, they'll say, God, we wish that Elon Musk didn't move and that he'd still live in Southern California and he could bring the Department of Governmental Efficiency down to LA County and force LA County to cut red tape, right?
It's an interesting. Have you ever seen anything like this in a potential presidency with Trump bringing this kind of people in? It's kind of interesting how it'll play out, huh?
Well, it represents this view that exists among people like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and others that AI can cut a lot of government bureaucracy, cut a lot of corporate bureaucracy. Yeah. I mean, effectively what it does is it says a lot of people that push paper really don't add any value. And if you put a computer system in that has even a mild form of AI that works, it can make decisions and make more accurate decisions. I mean, the best analogy is if you put a computer into a blackjack game in Las Vegas to play blackjack, if it could visually identify the cards, which it can, and it could play a seat at blackjack, it would do far better than most human players at blackjack because it knows all the rules inside out and it knows all the statistics inside out. And it probably could even do some card counting along the way because it's that sophisticated, right?
Wow.
So imagine that you put AI into some of these governmental permit things where it's just check the box stuff, right? It's just a checklist kind of thing. And ultimately, maybe the burden is going to be more on the inspectors that go to inspect the work rather than all the people that are sitting behind a computer at their office in downtown Los Angeles.
Yeah, amazing.
There's a lot of, I think, renewed activity, talk about Northern California versus Southern California. There's a lot of renewed activity dealing with the number of startups that are doing AI kinds of things.
Oh, I see. Okay.
In Northern California. And so almost every startup is hooked into some sort of AI-based venture in which they are taking a lot of people out of even the startup. Like the startups don't need to be 5 people anymore. They don't even need to be 3 people. Often it's just a couple of guys or a couple of gals or a guy and a gal. I can't even say that anymore. It could be a non-binary person or 2 non-binary people, right? and they are brainstorming stuff that I used to think would take 10 or 15 or 20 people to do. And they're doing it with a couple of people.
Amazing.
I mean, I spent some time over the last week with a couple of people that are working on a whole new innovation that may change an entire way in which events occur. And they're probably doing the work of 20 people, these two people, essentially one on hardware and one on software. And they may change a structural aspect of business in a way that, like, anyone looking at it would say, that's got to be 10, 20, 30 people doing that project. And they don't need to be that many people, which means they don't need venture capital at the front end. They don't need offices. They don't need all of this project management. They do it between themselves. It's just, Joe, it's a radical change from the way we have thought of it. I mean, you did a startup that you did on a very lean basis, so you understand this. But I'm telling you, it is now on steroids. What's happening in the startup world, happening on steroids with just a couple of people with an idea, with good skills or great skills in using various AI tools. And they're building this stuff rapidly and they're creating wealth. I mean, they when they go out for money, they go out for maybe $1 million. They're already at maybe a $40-50 million valuation when they get their first million. They don't have to give up more than 4 or 5% of the company.
So this is really changing the landscape. Wow. Oh, wow.
It's changing the landscape in a way that's like we haven't yet fully appreciated it, but I'm sure that these they're studying it and are trying to understand what that will mean, because it means the price of money or the stake that they get in the startup is minuscule compared to when they're used to getting 20, 30, 40% of the business at the front end. That just ain't happening anymore, which means they can't get control, which means they ultimately have a very tiny voice, if any voice at all. And it's, you have to like imagine over the next 10 years, this is only going to amplify further. And it does change a lot of things. I mean, it will change a lot of ways in which various aspects of the ecosystem have to adapt and adjust.
Don't you even think?
We'll see what.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. And then we haven't even seen the evolution of blockchain. So then I wonder, like, I know this, you could probably see this, but can you see, these startup companies being in a blockchain, let's just call it blockchain format or something, where they just have their stuff posted somewhere and VCs go in and they usually pick and choose who wants to work with who. I know that sounds a little crazy, but I'm not even sure.
Joe, the ultimate kind of 22nd century version of this, which is obviously still 70, 75 years away.
Yeah.
But let's call it the accelerated second half of the 21st century, which is only 25 years away, is there's an actual view that the organization itself is run by a machine. They're calling this a decentralized autonomous organization, a DAO. And what DAO stands for, that three-letter acronym stands for, is the governance of the corporation is not through a board of directors. It's through the way in which the blockchain operates the business. So conceptually, if you look at, let's take a business like, for example, Uber.
Okay.
90% of the decisions that are made by Uber as a corporation are all made by a computer. Like the matching,
I see what you're
fare
saying.
adjustment.
Yeah. Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
like
do.
There's still a board
all that. Right.
But take that 10% and start gnawing away at, well, what decisions are being made that are that important that can't be put in the computer in some fashion? I mean, there are decisions, but 90% going in, 91%, 92%, 93% are all baked in to the existing set of computer operations. If you get that to 100%, you just don't need people anymore. It's essentially the business is being operated by a computer and a team of data scientists and computer scientists who are looking at how to improve that system over time. Now, there should be some supervision and ultimately some governance at a higher level than just a computer. But there are people that are saying, no, we'll use the democratic processes of the blockchain to allow voting to happen by the participants that exist on the blockchain, and that'll exist as the verification system. It sounds outlandish, and most of us would say, well, that's even worse than self-driving, because that's like the computer is running an entire business as opposed to just driving one car. In fact, the computers are driving many cars these days.
Right.
All those Waymo cars are being driven by computers, right, in San Francisco.
Yep.
Have you taken one of those?
I have. It's off. The first time you think it's awfully weird, but you think to yourself, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can clearly see the future. You really can. I mean, it's weird, but this is where we're going.
The fare was actually higher than Uber, though, right?
Yeah, right.
But I've heard people say, well, I prefer the Waymo because I don't have to listen to the music that the driver has on, and I don't have to listen to the driver who's usually doing a phone call with someone while they're driving the car, right?
Well, actually, you bring up a good point. Not only that, but I've Ubered quite a bit, and not as many, but enough to. The other thing that sometimes you run into is you get someone I hate to say this, I had a couple times the driver's body odor. I know it sounds strange, was so terrible. I couldn't. I had to roll the windows down.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, there are drivers that clearly don't care what the state of their car is. I mean, they really are supposed to have like a super clean car, but there are definitely drivers that don't necessarily care, and they treat it like it's my car. I can do whatever I want, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting. So in general, it sounds like we're waiting on seeing interest rates dropping. You're hoping they get to 5%. Whether that happens or not in the first half sounds questionable, right?
Sounds questionable. Yeah, unless something catastrophic or something happens we don't know about. But I don't see it. And I also think it's interesting because I have to believe that this could be why the market started to correct a little bit. The more that the market and everybody knows that interest rates will probably stay higher longer, that's going to ultimately hurt a lot of high tech usually. But now with Trump's tax cuts and stuff, I don't know, maybe it'll offset. I don't know.
Well, Joe, I hope you have a good 2025. Obviously, we'll be talking further going into the year.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear that everything is fine and dandy with your family and you're in good health and you're doing those long hikes. So stay healthy and happy, and we'll look forward to seeing you probably less next month.
Tune in next time on The Valley Current.